Hello everyone, welcome to part 2 of cloud security and its key components. I am Rohan Nagi and this is Tech Mantra with Rohan and Sultan. And with me is my co-host Sultan. Hello Sultan.
Hey Rohan, how are you?
So in part 1, we introduced cloud security and its key components. We talked about secure access, secure web gateway, URL filtering. So today we will continue from there and we will talk about few additional key components of cloud security. So Sultan, if you remember that we have discussed how enterprise can control user behavior. We talked about that cloud security where cloud traffic in and out inspection, good and bad website using the URL filtering, and then the secure connectivity. That's where we talked about the ZTNA framework, secure access. So in an enterprise infrastructure, we want to eliminate the shadow IT and unsanctioned, unapproved cloud services scenario.
Absolutely, Rohan. And this is where we need to start thinking about something called Cloud Access Security Broker, or what's called CASB, which really helps in terms of visibility, maintaining lateral security, but also ensuring that the enterprise users are in compliance with the corporate policies.
Got it. So visibility, that's where the CASB comes to play.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so when you think about that, the Cloud Access Security Broker is an element that can be on-premise, or it can be in the cloud. It essentially is sitting between the users who are trying to connect to the cloud and the applications that they're trying to connect to, which are also in the cloud. And essentially what CASB is doing, it's monitoring all the activity that's happening between the users and the applications, but it's also ensuring that those policies that have been established are being enforced. So the original purpose of CASB was to provide visibility into all of those cloud services while maintaining compliance, data security, and threat protection.
So when you say CASB, so it comes to my mind the visibility, the compliance, and this security element is sitting between the users and that cloud applications.
Correct.
So this CASB functions allow security teams with visibility into the state of cloud-bound data so that cases of employee storing or moving the data outside of that policy can be kind of detected and it can be blocked. So let me give you an example out here. An enterprise user is trying to access an enterprise sanctioned application like Office 365, and they are transferring sensitive data to their personal email folder on the public internet. So this operation will be detected by the CASB, and the transfer of that intellectual sensitive property is then blocked.
Exactly.
So Sultan, this leads us to another important topic, which is security breaches. We talked about secure connectivity, cloud traffic in and out. We talked about the visibility piece with the CASB, URL filtering, the bad and the good side. What about the breaches? Let's talk about some breaches. And when we talk about breaches are not always the result of external malicious attack. We know based on several security reports and study that breaches can occur from within the organization. So how do enterprises deal with these kind of scenarios?
I mean, to your point, breaches don't always come from the outside. It can also stem from within the organization. And so this is where we talk about something called data loss prevention or data leak prevention, which is essentially saying, how do we ensure that internal data is not in any way compromised, stolen by a third party? A good example is PCI compliance, or what is called payment card industry compliance, which is really saying, hey, when you have these credit card transactions, you have customer data. We don't want that customer data leaked in any way because that becomes a liability. So by looking at number patterns or specific phrases, or personal identifiable information that relates to a person, these things need to be protected, and that's what data loss prevention or data leak prevention is doing. But remember, data loss prevention, DLP, only works well when it is coupled with these other elements. Going back to the point about having a single integrated solution brings you the value, because just by itself, DLP doesn't do much unless you also have the other components like the web security gateway working together to provide that line of defense from both internal and external threats. We want to make sure that people on the inside aren't getting this information out, but we also make sure people from the outside aren't coming in and penetrating.
So, that's a very good point. All these working as a single security stack. So coming back to DLP, data loss prevention or data leak prevention, what I want to really highlight here for the DLP is that from the other security inspection is that its primary focus is on the internal network data rather than the threats which are coming from outside to inside enterprise network. So these data leak prevention, how they detect it? So they use some kind of a watermarking,
Yep.
Some kind of a digital marker, file fingerprinting, document filtering, some kind of a pattern matching technique to identify and then block that unauthorized access of that sensitive data. Let me just give you an example. I think you gave an example of PCI, the retail. Let me pick up some other, kind of a vertical or a use case, healthcare. So the remote user from the healthcare clinic is sending some protected health information, what we call it as PHI, to the public internet. So this will be detected because it is already watermarked as per that enterprise policy, in this case the healthcare vertical, and that will be identified by DLP and it will be blocked. So Sultan, a quick thought. We talked about secure access, secure connectivity, ZTNA framework, secure web gateway, cloud traffic in and out. We talked about URL filtering, the bad and the good websites. We talked about DLP, internal information going out and blocking it. We also talk about CASB, where the visibility and the compliance piece comes to play. Hey, what about the firewall? That's the key element for any security. What about the firewall? Did we forget that?
No, I mean, absolutely, right? Firewall is still a very critical component. And just like that next-gen firewall that's on-premise, we need to think about how do we provide that same capability from the cloud. And that's what we call firewall as a service or cloud firewall, which essentially delivers all of those same functionality, that advanced next-generation firewall capabilities with access control, advanced threat protection, intrusion prevention, intrusion detection, domain naming, security services. Firewall as a service really gives enterprises that flexibility to scale and to add services as needed on demand.
So it's the same firewall, but delivered in the cloud, the next generation firewall as a cloud.
Exactly.
Okay. So it's very clear that this cloud security is essential component for SASE and critical to the success of enterprise customers, how they can transform their security infrastructure to be more cloud ready and more digitally enabled. By the way, I think I want to reiterate the point here, which you have mentioned out earlier, that all these unique security features bring specific value to the security equation. Each have their important role, but to maximize the security impact, it is very important that enterprises have all these elements working together as part of a single integrated security stack. I think that's the key here.
Could not agree more. Could not agree more.
Thank you very much. In the coming episode, we'll discuss each of these components in much more details. We'll double click on each of these components. Till then, thanks for joining us. See you soon.